The night sky was not like Earth. It was painted in strange colors. Rivers of green light moved across the dark, and two moons stood high above. The man walked slowly on the rocky path, carrying only a small pack and an old rifle. He was far from home, a human among alien worlds, and he felt the weight of silence pressing on his shoulders. He was not here for adventure, not for glory. He was only moving from one small trade town to another, selling a few tools, fixing machines for coins. He was a wanderer, no one special, but fate often finds those who never ask for it. As he reached the edge of a ruined stone wall, he heard it, the sound of footsteps, quick, desperate, uneven, like someone running but stumbling at the same time. He stopped, tightening his grip on the rifle. From the shadows, a figure appeared, tall and thin. Her skin glowed faintly in the moonlight, not human, her eyes larger than his, shining like glass, and behind her, clinging tightly to her long cloak, was a small child. The man froze. His instincts told him to step back, but the woman raised her hands, showing she carried no weapon. Her voice trembled as she spoke, her accent strange, yet clear enough to understand. "Human, please, take me and my child as your concubine." The man's breath caught in his throat. He thought he had misheard. Of all the things an alien woman could say, this was the last he expected. She stood there, shaking, her child half hidden behind her, the boy's small eyes watching the man with fear and hope. The silence between them stretched, broken only by the night wind. The man frowned, his heart beating faster. He raised the rifle slightly, not to fire, but to keep distance. "What are you saying?" he asked, his voice low. "Do you even know what that means?" The alien woman lowered her head, her voice steady but filled with pain. "I know what it means. It is the only way I can ask for protection. Without this, we will be taken. We will not survive." The man's mind spun. He was a simple wanderer, not a hero, not a savior, and now an alien woman was asking him for something that sounded like a dark bargain. He glanced at the child. The boy's hands clutched his mother's cloak, eyes wet with fear, and in that moment the man felt a sharp pull in his chest. Still doubt filled him. "Why me? You don't even know who I am," he said, his tone harsh, but inside he felt confusion more than anger. The woman stepped closer, her voice breaking. "Because you are human. And I was told humans do not treat women like cattle. I was told humans can be cruel in war, but also kind to the weak. I took the risk. I found you." Her words cut through the night air. The man felt heat rise in his face. He wanted to deny it, to turn away, to say he had nothing to do with her, yet something deep inside him would not let him. A sudden noise came from the distance, a long howl, metallic, like machines hunting. The woman flinched, grabbing her child close. She whispered in fear, "They are coming." The man's rifle felt heavier in his hands. His mind told him to walk away, to leave her, to survive on his own. But his heart argued, louder than reason. He stared at the woman again, her eyes glowing with desperate hope, her child trembling at her side. And he realized this was not a trick, not a game. This was life and death. He muttered under his breath, "Damn it." Then louder, "Stay close to me, but don't think I agreed to anything yet." The woman bowed her head quickly, relief flooding her face. The boy looked at him with wide eyes, whispering something in their alien tongue, words the man did not understand, but the tone was clear. Gratitude. They began to move, the man leading them away from the ruined wall, deeper into the forest of tall, twisted trees. Every shadow seemed alive, every sound too sharp. Behind him he could hear the woman's steps, light but hurried, and the child's small breaths. The man's thoughts raced. He had no plan, no idea why fate had thrown him into this. Yet something told him this was only the beginning. As they reached a clearing, the man looked back. For the first time he saw the full picture of the alien woman's face. Her beauty strange but undeniable, marked with scars of hardship, her eyes carrying both fear and strength. The man's heart tightened, not with desire but with respect. She had chosen humiliation if it meant survival for her child. He turned forward again, gripping his rifle tight. The sound of distant hunters growing closer, the night alive with danger. The encounter had begun, and nothing would ever be the same for him again. The night was heavy with silence as they walked, the man leading, the alien woman and her child following close behind. Shadows moved with the wind, and every step felt like it echoed across the alien forest. The man's mind refused to calm. Her words kept circling in his head. "Take me and my child as your concubine." The phrase burned like fire. He had expected a plea for help, or maybe a desperate cry for food or water. But not this, not something that sounded so strange, so wrong. At last he stopped, turning sharply, his eyes narrowing as he faced her. "Tell me what you meant," he said, his voice firm but low. "Why would you ask me for such a thing?" The woman lowered her head, her long dark hair falling around her face. The child clung tighter to her cloak. She took a breath that trembled before words escaped her lips. In my world, she said softly, a woman without a protector is nothing. She can be taken by any man, beaten, traded, sold. Worse, if she is with a child, the danger is doubled. The child is seen as weak prey, and the mother is seen as useless burden. The man felt a shiver, a crawl down his spine. He was no stranger to harsh lands. He had seen cruelty in wars, but the way she spoke carried a deeper pain, a truth carved into her bones. So you come to me, he muttered, and ask to be my concubine. Her eyes lifted then, glowing faintly under the moonlight. They held no shame, only despair. It is the only word I know, she whispered, the word for safety. For a man who claims a woman so no other can touch her. If you take me, if you claim me, then my child and I cannot be taken by another. The child pressed his small hands against her side, his eyes wide, as if the meaning of her words was carved into his heart as well. The man clenched his jaw, anger rising, not at her, but at the world that forced such a choice on her. Among my people, he said slowly, concubine is not a word of safety. It is a word of chains, of ownership. Do you understand that? The woman blinked, confusion flickering. Then why do humans use it? He shook his head, sighing, because some humans are no better than beasts. But not all, not all. For a moment they stared at each other, the night air thick between them, her eyes glimmering with a fragile hope, his eyes hard with conflict. She stepped forward, the child stumbling with her. I do not ask for chains, she said, her voice shaking. I ask for a shield. You are human and humans are different. At least that is what I was told. I would rather be a shadow beside you than a corpse in their cages. The words struck him deep. He looked away, staring into the dark forest, hearing faint echoes of the hunters' machines moving in the distance. Closer now. He thought of his past, of long journeys across silent planets, of battlefields where men cried out for mercy, of nights alone by firelight with no one beside him. He had never chosen to protect anyone, never let another's life depend on him. But Ree was this alien woman asking no, begging, not for love, not for wealth, but for survival. The man lowered his rifle slightly, his shoulders heavy. And the child, he asked quietly, what will they do to him? The woman's lips trembled. She hugged the boy closer. They will take him, twist him, use his blood, his mind. He is still young, still pure. They will turn him into something that serves their wars. I cannot let them. The boy looked up then, his small voice breaking the silence. Protector, he whispered in his own tongue, the word cracked but clear, and though the man could not understand the language, he felt the meaning pierce his chest. The man's breath caught. He stared at the boy, then at the mother, her eyes wet but burning with fire, and for the first time, he felt the weight of choice pressing down like stone. He could walk away, leave them, let fate devour them. He owed them nothing. Yet he knew if he did, their faces would haunt him forever. A strange laugh escaped his throat, bitter and soft. You choose a poor shield, he muttered. I am no warrior of legends. I am only a wanderer with a broken gun and tired feet. The woman stepped closer, her voice breaking but certain. Then you are already greater than the men of my world, because you speak of your weakness, not your power, because you see me as a person, not as property. Her words froze him. He met her gaze, and for the first time he saw not only fear but strength wrapped in pain. He closed his eyes for a moment, his breath heavy, then opened them, staring at the trees where the hunter's light now glimmered faintly, approaching like predators. Fine, he said at last, his voice sharp. But hear me well, I do not take concubines. I take no slaves. If you stay with me, it is because I protect you, not because I own you. The woman's lips parted, her eyes widening in shock. She bowed her head quickly, whispering words of gratitude. The child pressed close, wisp. Airing again. Protector. The man gripped his rifle tighter, turning back toward the path ahead. Stay close, he muttered, his heart pounding. We do not have much time. Behind them, the glow of hunters grew brighter, the sound of iron footsteps shaking the earth. The night was about to explode into danger, but between them, a fragile bond had already formed, and with that bond, everything was about to change. The forest was alive with whispers of danger. The man walked quickly, his rifle steady in his hands. Behind him, the alien woman clutched her child close, their steps soft but hurried. The night seemed endless, yet every sound told him time was running short. He could hear it now, not just in the distance but closer. The low growl of machines, the crunch of heavy boots on soil. The hunters were not far. Their pursuit was steady, patient, like wolves that had already marked their prey. The woman's breath was ragged, her eyes scanning the shadows, fear carved lines across her pale face. The child pressed against her side, too quiet for someone so young. His fear had already learned silence. The man slowed only for a moment, turning his head. Tell me who they are, he demanded, his voice sharp. What are we running from? Her lips trembled before words came. They are enforcers of the Dominion, she whispered. A force that rules this sector with iron chains. They take what they want, and no one dares stand against them. They are not soldiers of honor, they are hunters of flesh. The man frowned, his chest tightening. He had heard rumors of such groups, fragments of stories told in trade outposts, but hearing it in her voice, seeing her fear, made it real. They want the child, he said, not as a question, but as a grim truth. The woman nodded, her eyes wet. Yes, they will not stop until they have him. His blood is different, his birth was not ordinary. And they believe he holds power they can use. Experiments, breeding, slavery. I cannot say which fate is worse. The child looked up, his small eyes wide, his hand clutching at her cloak. Though he did not understand the words, he felt the weight of her fear. The man's jaw clenched, anger boiling in him. And you? He asked. Why would they chase you? Her voice cracked as she answered. Because I defied them. Because I ran. In their eyes, I am a possession that escaped, and such things must be punished. If they catch me, I will not live. But my child will not die quickly. They will break him until nothing remains. The man felt his grip tighten on the rifle. He had seen cruelty before, but never had it come so close. Never had it stared him in the face like this. The forest opened into a wide clearing, the moons bathing the ground in pale light. He halted, scanning the horizon, and that was when he saw them. Faint lights moving through the trees, steady, cold, mechanical. They are close, he muttered, his instincts screaming at him, his mind racing for options. The woman clutched her child tighter, her voice trembling. You should leave us, human. If you are caught with me, they will kill you too. I should never have dragged you into this. The man turned sharply, his voice firm. It's too late for that. They saw you come to me. They will not stop until one of us is dead, so we stand together, or we fall alone. Her eyes widened, surprise flashing through the fear. No one had ever spoken to her that way. No one had ever chosen to share her burden. The child whispered again in his own tongue, a soft sound that echoed like prayer. The man could not understand the words, but somehow they gave him strength. He looked at the woman, his voice steady. If what you say is true, then this child is more than just your son. He is a key to something they fear or desire that makes him worth fighting for. Her lips parted, trembling. You would fight for us, she whispered. Red, disbelief heavy in her voice. I didn't say I was smart, the man muttered, his eyes on the lights creeping closer. But I won't stand by while they take a child. The forest air grew heavier, the sound of mechanical growls rising. The hunters were moving faster now, closing the distance. The man pointed toward a ridge at the far end of the clearing. We head there. The high ground will give us a chance. They moved quickly, the woman holding the boy against her chest, the man leading with tense steps, every muscle ready, every sense sharp. As they climbed the ridge, the boy looked back once, his small eyes wide as the hunters finally emerged from the trees. Tall figures clad in dark armor, faces hidden by masks, their bodies half machine, half flesh, red lights glowing where eyes should be. The woman gasped, her steps faltering. They have found us. The man turned, his rifle aimed, his heart pounding like thunder. The hunters moved with slow confidence, as if certain of their victory. Their weapons gleamed under the moons. The man shouted back, "Keep moving, don't stop!" The woman obeyed, climbing higher, the boy clinging tightly, his eyes never leaving the man. The hunters raised their weapons, beams of red light cutting through the night. The man fired. The shot echoed loud. Sparks flew as one of the hunters staggered back, but the others kept coming, relentless. The ground shook under their heavy steps, the air filled with the scent of burning metal and soil. The man kept firing, forcing them to slow, but he knew he could not hold them forever. Finally, the woman and child reached the top of the ridge, the man back toward them, still firing, his voice a growl. Go, run, I'll cover you. The woman screamed back, No, you cannot face them alone. But the man did not listen, his eyes locked on the advancing hunters, his body set. He had made his choice the moment he met her eyes, the moment he saw the boy. The hidden danger was no longer hidden. It stood before them, armed and merciless, and the man knew this night would test not only his strength, but his very soul. The ridge trembled under the weight of the hunters, their metal boots crushing stone and soil, red lights glowing from their masked faces, the air thick with the smell of burning circuits and hot metal. The man stood firm, rifle aimed, though his heart beat wildly inside his chest. The alien woman clutched her child at the top of the ridge, her voice breaking as she cried out, You cannot face them alone. Her eyes wide with fear, her arms shaking as she held the boy close. The man turned his head slightly, his eyes locking with hers. In that instant, he saw everything. Her desperation, her shame, her fear, and also a small spark of hope. It was a hope that hurt to look at, fragile and trembling, yet still alive. For a moment, time seemed to stretch. The world around him faded. He remembered other days, long ago, standing on battlefields where men begged for mercy, where women cried for their children, where commanders spoke of strategy but never of humanity. He had walked away from those memories, tried to bury them under silence and wandering, but now they returned, not as ghosts, but as fire. The hunters advanced, their voices mechanical, cold commands that filled the air. Return the asset, surrender the woman, surrender the child. Resistance will mean execution. The man's lips curled into a bitter smile. He whispered under his breath, "You always say the same words." Then louder, his voice steady, "Come take them if you can." He fired. The rifle cracked like thunder. Sparks burst from one hunter's armor, forcing it to stagger back. The others spread out, their weapons glowing with deadly light. The woman gasped. Her child buried his face against her shoulder, the boy's small voice shaking as he whispered the word again, "Protector." That word struck the man harder than any bullet. Protector. Not master, not owner, but something different, something greater. The hunters moved closer, beams of light slashing through the air. The man ducked, rolled, fired again, his body moving with practiced instinct, though his rifle shook with each blast. Though sweat burned his eyes, he stood his ground, but deep inside, he knew one truth. He could not hold forever. Sooner or later, the rifle would fail, the hunters would close the distance, and then it would end. His mind screamed at him, "Run, save yourself, leave them." But his heart thundered louder, "No, you cannot, not this time." At the top of the ridge, the woman cried, her voice sharp with pain. "Why human? Why risk your life for us? You owe us nothing." The man's laugh was harsh, broken, but full of fire. "Because I am human," he shouted back, "and humans protect the weak. We are not perfect, but we fight when no one else will." His words carried across the ridge, carried into her heart. Her eyes widened, tears streaking down her face. No man of her world had ever spoken those words. No man had ever chosen to fight for her without chains. The hunters roared in unison, charging forward, the ground shaking beneath their boots. The man braced himself, firing shot after shot, sparks flying, metal screeching, until smoke filled the air. Still they came, relentless, unstoppable. The woman looked down at her child, his small hands clutching her cloak, his eyes wide. She felt something stir inside her, a fire. She thought long dead. She could not let the human fight alone. She could not let him carry the burden by himself. She set the child behind a rock, whispering for him to stay hidden. Then she rose, her body trembling but her spirit fierce. She grabbed a jagged stone from the ground, her eyes burning as she showed. "You did. If you fight for us, then I fight with you." The man glanced back, surprise flashing in his eyes, then a faint smile touched his lips. "So be it," he muttered. Together they stood, human and alien, side by side, their silhouettes framed by moonlight, their breaths ragged but steady. The hunters charged, but the fight had changed. It was no longer one against many. It was a stand for survival, for dignity, for something greater than life itself. The man felt strength surge through him, not from his rifle, but from the bond that had formed. A bond not of blood, not of chains, but of choice. One hunter lunged forward, its blade glowing. The man sidestepped, firing point blank. Sparks and metal exploded. The woman screamed, swinging the stone against another hunter's mask, cracks spreading across its surface. The machine reeled back. For the first time, the hunters hesitated, their cold red eyes flickering as if confused. They had expected prey, not resistance, not unity. The man shouted, his voice raw, "You will not take them," his words echoing through the clearing. "This child will not be yours." The woman stood beside him, her voice breaking but strong. "We are not cattle. We are not property." The hunters growled, regrouping, their weapons humming louder. The fight was not over, not yet, but something had shifted. Something powerful had been born. In that moment, the man realized his choice was made, not by duty, not by logic, but by something deeper, something that made humanity feared and respected across the stars, the choice to protect, even when it seemed hopeless. The hunters roared again, preparing to strike, but the man and woman stood ready, their hearts fierce, their bond unbreakable. And in the shadows, the child watched, his small hands clenched into fists, his eyes wide with belief. For the first time in his short life, he believed they might survive. The night had turned into a battle field, and the choice had been made, humanity's choice, to stand, to protect, to fight, even against the impossible. The ridge shook with the thunder of machines. The hunters pressed forward, their glowing eyes fixed on the woman and her child, their weapons sparking with deadly light. The man fired again, forcing two to stumble, but more closed in, relentless as shadows. "Run!" he shouted, his voice harsh. "Take the child and run." The woman's heart pounded, her arms clutching her son tight. She hesitated only for a breath, then obeyed, pulling the boy close and rushing down the far side of the ridge, her steps stumbling over rocks, her cloak tearing on jagged stone. But she never stopped. The man stayed behind, his rifle blazing, his teeth gritted as he covered their retreat, each shot echoing through the night, each shot slowing the hunters but never breaking their advance. Finally, when the rifle clicked empty, the man cursed under his breath, tossing it aside, his eyes burning with resolve. He turned and sprinted after them, his legs carrying him fast into the dark forest. The hunters roared, their mechanical voices vibrating in the air. "Target fleeing, pursue, pursue!" The chase had begun. The forest was alive with chaos, branches snapping, roots tearing under heavy steps. The woman ran with every ounce of strength left in her, the boy clinging to her back, his small voice trembling. "Mother, they are close. I know," she whispered, her breath ragged. "Hold on, my child, hold on." The man caught up, his breath sharp, sweat dripping down his face. He glanced back, seeing red beams slicing through the trees, hunters crashing forward, their armored bodies unyielding. "Keep moving," he barked, his voice cutting through the panic. "Don't stop, no matter what." The woman nodded, her legs trembling but refusing to give in, her child's weight heavy but her will heavier. The hunters fired beams of energy, burning holes into trees, scorching the ground near their feet. The forest lit up with flashes of red, smoke rising into the night sky. The man grabbed the woman's arm, yanking her aside just as a beam scorched the spot where she had been standing, the heat searing the air. The boy gasped, clutching tighter. They stumbled into a ravine, sliding down dirt and stone, the hunters above howling as they recalculated their path, their heavy bodies struggling to follow down the steep slope. The man helped the woman to her feet, his eyes scanning the dark. "We need cover," he muttered. "We can't outrun them forever." "There is an old shelter ahead," the woman said between breaths, her voice shaking. "A ruin from before the Dominion. I used it once. It may give us a moment to hide." "Then lead the way," the man replied, his eyes sharp. They ran again, weaving through the undergrowth, the hunters' growls echoing behind them, every sound a reminder that death was only steps away. The boy clutched his mother's cloak, his small voice whispering, "Protect her," as his eyes stayed on the man ahead. The word drove the man forward, his muscles burning but his spirit fierce. The shelter came into view, half buried under roots and moss, a broken doorway leading into darkness. The woman rushed inside, holding her child close. The man followed, pushing broken metal aside as they entered the ruin. Inside, the air was cold and stale, the walls cracked, the ceiling dripping with slow drops of water. It was not safe, but it was a shield, however thin. The man pressed his back against the wall, his chest heaving. He looked at the woman, her arms still wrapped tight around the boy, her eyes wide with fear. "They won't give up," he said, his voice grim. "They'll track us here." She nodded, her lips trembling. "I know." For a moment, silence filled the shelter, broken only by the child's soft breathing, the woman's hands stroking his hair, the man's eyes watching the doorway like a hawk. Then the ground shook again. Heavy footsteps outside. The hunters had found them, their voices booming. "No escape! Surrender the child! Surrender the woman!" The man clenched his fists, his heart pounding. He had no rifle now, no weapon but his courage. Yet still he stood, blocking the doorway, his voice sharp as a blade. "If you want them, you'll have to go through me." The woman gasped, her eyes shining with shock and something more, something like faith, she whispered. "Why do you fight so hard, human? Why for us?" The man did not look back, his eyes locked on the glowing lights outside, his voice steady. "Because that's what it means to be human. We don't walk away when the innocent are hunted." The hunter surged forward, crashing into the ruin, metal scraping against stone. The man braced himself, grabbing a broken steel pipe from the floor, his grip tight, his teeth gritted. The first hunter lunged. The man swung with all his strength, sparks flying as metal clashed. The creature staggered, growling. The woman screamed, but her child pressed his small hands over her mouth, whispering, "Protect her." His young voice trembling but strong. The hunters pressed in, the ruin shaking with every blow. The man fought like a cornered wolf, every strike a roar of defiance, every step backward a promise not to fall. But the hunters were many, and his body was only flesh, his strength fading, his arms trembling. Just as one hunter raised its blade high, ready to strike, the woman grabbed a fallen shard of metal, her voice fierce. "No!" she cried, leaping forward, slashing across its mask. Sparks burst as it reeled back. The man looked at her, eyes wide, then a grim smile touched his lips. "So you fight too." Together they stood, battered but unbroken, the hunters circling, their red eyes burning. The chase had brought them here, into the ruin, into the fire, and there was no turning back. The Boy peeked from behind the broken wall, his small eyes filled with fear, but also something else, something new, he believed, truly believed, that they might survive. The night outside howled with machines, the ruin shook with battle, the chase had begun, and it would not end until one side fell. The ruin shook as the hunters forced their way inside, red eyes glowing like fire in the darkness, their mechanical voices echoing against the broken walls. Target located, surrender immediately, resistance is useless. The man stood at the doorway, gripping the steel pipe like a sword, his breath heavy, his muscles burning, yet his spirit unbroken. Behind him, the alien woman held her child, her arms trembling but her eyes fierce. She was no longer only a victim, she was ready to fight beside him. The first hunter charged, its blade raised, the man roared, swinging the pipe with all his strength. Sparks burst as metal struck metal. The hunter stumbled, but two more stepped forward, weapons humming with deadly light. The woman screamed, grabbing another shard of metal from the ground. She struck one across the mask, cracks spreading across its surface. The machine staggered, its red glow flickering. The hunters growled, their voices cold and united. Resistance will be punished, child will be taken, mother will be broken. The man's blood boiled, fury surging through him. Not while I breathe, he shouted, his voice echoing like thunder. The clash grew louder, steel against steel, flesh against machine. The man fought with every ounce of his strength, his strikes wild but filled with determination. The hunters pressed him back, but he refused to fall. The woman stood beside him, her hair wild, her eyes blazing. Every strike she made was for her child. Every scream from her lips was filled with defiance. The child crouched behind broken stone, his small hands gripping the rock, his wide eyes shining. He whispered the word again and again. Protector, protector, his young voice like a prayer. The hunters advanced, their weapons cue, adding through stone, the ruin shuddering with each blow. But the man and the woman held their ground, their bond giving them strength beyond flesh. The man lunged, slamming the pipe into a hunter's chest. Sparks flew, circuits burned, the machine staggered and fell, broken. For the first time, victory seemed possible. The woman cried out in triumph, striking another, her shard slicing wires. The machine screeched, stumbling back, but more came, endless, relentless, their red eyes glowing brighter, their cold voices chanting, surrender, surrender. The man's body ached, his arms heavy, his breath ragged. He knew he could not last much longer. His eyes darted to the woman, her face pale but determined, to the child, his eyes wide with fear and belief, and something inside the man hardened. He thought of his people, of Earth far away, of the stories told about humanity, stories of courage, of stubbornness, of choosing to stand when others kneel, and he realized this was his moment, his choice. He raised his voice, shouting into the chaos. We are human, we are free, we protect, we fight, and we do not break. His words cut through the night, through the ruin, through the fear. Even the hunters paused, as if uncertain of the fire burning in his voice. The woman's eyes widened, tears glimmering. She raised her shard high, her voice trembling but strong. And we are not slaves, we are not cattle, we are mothers, we are children, we are alive. Together their voices rose, not just words, but defiance. And the hunters hesitated, their cold logic shaken. The man seized the moment, charging forward, pipe swinging. He struck one hunter down, its body crashing to the floor, sparks flying like stars. The woman struck another, her shard digging deep, its mask shattering, the red glow fading, the ruin filled with noise, screams of machines, roars of human rage. The clash of two worlds, flesh against steel, spirit against chains. Still the hunters pressed in, their sheer numbers overwhelming. The man staggered, a blade grazing his side, blood spilling, pain burning through him, but he did not fall. He gritted his teeth, his eyes blazing. The woman cried out, rushing to his side, her voice desperate. No, you cannot die. You cannot leave us. The man gasped, his voice rough but firm. I will not while he calls me protector. The child's voice rang out again, louder this time. Protector, protector. His small fists clenched, his eyes filled with fierce belief. The hunters faltered, as if confused, their red eyes flickering, their cold voices breaking. Error. Resistance too strong. Error. The man roared, swinging his pipe again. The woman struck beside him. Together they pushed back, their will burning brighter than the hunter's steel. One by one, the hunters fell, broken, their bodies sparking, the ruin filled with smoke and fire, until at last only silence remained. The man stood trembling, his body weak, blood dripping from his wounds. The woman at his side, her hands steady though her arms shook. The child rushing forward, wrapping his small arms around the man's leg, whispering the word again, protector. The man dropped the pipe, his body collapsing to his knees, his breath ragged, yet his eyes still sharp. He looked at the woman, her tears streaming, her child clinging to her, and he felt something shift deep inside. This was no longer about survival alone. This was no longer just a chase. This was a war of spirit, a war of choice. The clash of worlds had begun, and in that clash, humanity's heart had spoken louder than any machine. Smoke filled the ruin, the air heavy with the scent of burnt metal and scorched stone. The hunters lay broken on the ground, their red eyes dark, their cold voices silent forever. The forest outside was quiet once more, though the silence Ari'd wait, the silence of a battle survived. The man knelt on one knee, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. Blood marked his side. His arms trembled with exhaustion, yet his eyes still burned with the fire of defiance. He had stood against death itself, and he had not broken. The alien woman dropped beside him, her arms steady though her body shook. She reached out, her hands pressing against his wound, her voice soft but urgent. "You bleed too much. You gave too much." The man gave a faint smile, bitter but alive. "Still breathing, still standing," he muttered, then looked at her. "And you, and the child, still here. That's enough for me." The child crawled closer, his small hands trembling as he touched the man's arm, his voice shaking but clear. "Protector," he whispered, the word carrying more weight than ever. The man felt his chest tighten, not from pain but from something deeper, something human. He looked at the boy, at the woman, and for the first time in years, he felt he was not alone. The woman's eyes glimmered with tears. She lowered her head. "You were never meant to carry us, yet you did. No man of my world would have chosen this. No man of my world would have stood between us and death. You are different, human." He laughed softly, though it came out more like a cough. Not different, just stubborn. For a long moment, none of them moved. The ruin cracked and broken around them, the night air seeping in, the stars above watching silently. The danger was not gone. Not completely, but the hunters were defeated, at least for now. The woman sat beside him, her child leaning against her. She spoke quietly, her voice like a fragile flame. "When I asked you to take me as your concubine, I thought only of survival. I thought only of saving my child, but now I see something else. You did not chain me. You freed me. You did not own me. You gave me dignity." The man looked at her, his face tired but his eyes sharp. "I never wanted chains. Not for you, not for anyone. I only wanted to keep you alive." Her lips trembled, then curved into the faintest smile. "Alive, and more than alive. You gave us hope." The boy leaned against the man's side, his small eyes closing, exhausted from fear and running, his voice soft as he whispered again, "Protector," before sleep took him. The man placed a hand gently on the boy's shoulder, his voice low. "Rest now, little one. You are safe." The woman's eyes shone, her tears falling freely. She whispered, "Safe. Because of you." Silence settled again, but this silence was different, no longer heavy with dread, but filled with the fragile breath of a new beginning. The man finally rose, his body weak but his will strong. He looked at the horizon where the first light of dawn touched the alien sky, 2 suns rising slowly, painting the clouds in gold and crimson. He turned to the woman, his voice steady. "They will send more. The Dominion will not forget. But if we keep running, if we keep fighting, then maybe, just maybe, this boy will grow up free." The woman stood beside him, her child in her arms, her eyes fierce despite her tears. "Then we will keep running. We will keep fighting together." The man nodded. For the first time in years, a sense of purpose filled him. Not the wandering of a lonely traveler, but the weight of something greater, the bond of those he had chosen to protect. They stepped out of the ruin, the forest stretching wide before them, the light of dawn spilling across broken trees and silent shadows. The man walked first, the woman close behind, the child resting against her, his small hands clutching her cloak. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with danger, but also with hope. The kind of hope that comes when people stand together. The kind of hope that no machine, no dominion could ever crush. As they moved deeper into the forest, the woman spoke softly, her voice carrying a strength that surprised. "At even her. You are not our master, not our owner. You are our partner, our family, our protector." The man glanced back, his eyes soft, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Family," he whispered, the word strange but warm. The boy stirred in his mother's arms, his small voice rising again, tired but filled with trust. "Protector." The man looked forward once more, the dawn rising brighter, the path stretching endless, and for the first time in his long wandering, he felt he was walking towards something, not away from it. The clash of worlds had been survived, and now, from the ashes, a new story began. The story of a human, an alien woman, and a child, bound not by chains but by choice, not by fear but by hope. A new beginning had risen, and it would echo far beyond the forest, far beyond the stars. A story of humanity's heart, a story of mercy, a story of defiance, the story of a protector.